All right, you've definitely seen this before, right? In pretty much every hospital show, there's that thin tube going into a patient's nose. But what's it actually doing? Well, today we're going to get into it. We're talking about the nasogastric tube, a device that seems simple but is an absolute lifeline. And we'll break down the really clever science behind how it all works. In medicine, the main goal is pretty simple: help the body heal itself. But what happens when someone is just so sick, or maybe they're coming out of a major surgery, that the most basic thing we do to survive, eating, suddenly becomes impossible, or even dangerous? So that's a huge problem, right? How do you get life-saving nutrition into someone when the main entrance, the mouth, is completely, closed for business? How do you work around that to give the body the fuel it desperately needs to recover? All right, so let's really dig into this challenge. We're talking about those times when the usual way of getting food and medicine in, well, it's just not an option. And these are really high-stakes situations we're talking about. Think about it. After a huge surgery, the stomach might need a total break. Or during a serious illness, the body's just too weak. And what about something like poisoning? You have to get those harmful things out and fast. In moments like these, swallowing isn't just hard, it can be downright dangerous. And that's where this really elegant solution comes in: the nasogastric tube, or as you'll hear it called, the NG tube. So let's break down what exactly this thing is. At its heart, it's a pretty simple concept, really. It's just a thin, flexible tube that basically creates a direct highway from the outside world right into the body. It goes in through the nose, down the back of the throat, that's the nasopharynx, then through the esophagus, the tube leading to your stomach. And yeah, this diagram here shows that journey perfectly. See how it's carefully guided? It goes past the back of the throat, down the esophagus, completely skipping the mouth and landing exactly where it needs to be, right inside the stomach. Okay, but here's something that's really interesting. NG tube isn't just one thing. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. They're actually different designs for different jobs. And the biggest difference between them is how many channels, or lumens, are inside the tube. So let's check out the two most common types. First, you've got the Levin tube. Just think of it like a simple one-way street. It's perfect for putting stuff in, like liquid nutrition or medication. Simple. But then you have the Salem sump. This one's more like a two-lane highway with two completely separate channels. And that dual design, it's a total game changer for some jobs. Okay, so this is the really brilliant part about the Salem sump. See that second channel, the one that ends in what they call the blue pigtail? That's just an air vent. Now, why is that such a big deal? Well, imagine you're using the main channel to suction stuff out of the stomach. That little pigtail lets air flow in. And what does that do? It breaks the vacuum, which stops the end of the tube from sticking to the stomach wall. It's such a simple idea, but it's an absolutely crucial safety feature. So because of this clever engineering, the NG tube is way more than just a feeding tube. It's really like a versatile medical multi-tool. It can do a whole range of things. Basically, its jobs fall into four main categories. First up is lavage. Just think of it as literally washing out the stomach, which is so important in something like an overdose. Then there's decompression. This is all about relieving that painful pressure from trapped air or fluid, especially after surgery. Third, you've got diagnostics. It lets you grab a quick sample of what's in the stomach for testing. And finally, the one most of us probably think of, nutrition, or enteral feeding, providing that direct line for liquid food. And this is a really important point. As long as a patient's gut is still working, this kind of feeding, enteral feeding, is always the way to go. Why? Because it uses the body's own digestive system, and that's always the best option if you can. So you're probably thinking, okay, but how does this tube actually get where it's supposed to go? Well, the whole process is super methodical, and it's all about one thing: patient safety. It really breaks down into three careful stages. First, they measure. The clinician will actually measure from the patient's nose to their earlobe and then down to the bottom of their sternum. This gives them a really good estimate of the length they need. Second, they insert it. The tube is lubricated and then gently guided down while the patient sips water. That natural swallowing reflex helps guide it down the right path. And then third, and this is the most important step of all, they have to confirm it's in exactly the right spot. And confirming that placement is non-negotiable. They can do a quick check right at the bedside by pulling back a tiny bit of fluid and testing its pH. Stomach acid is, well, very acidic, so that's a good first clue. But the real proof, the absolute gold standard, is an X-ray. You can see it right here. That X-ray clearly shows the tip of the tube is safely inside the stomach. Absolutely nothing goes down that tube until that X-ray gives the green light. Once it's confirmed, then it's all about ongoing care. That means making sure the tube is secure and keeping the patient's head elevated, usually to at least 30 degrees. It's a simple thing, but using gravity like that really helps prevent reflux and just makes a patient a lot more comfortable. So, as we start to wrap this up, it's pretty clear that this simple little piece of plastic tubing is, well, it's so much more than it looks. Think about it. When a patient is at their absolute most vulnerable, they can't swallow, their stomach needs to rest, the NG tube really does become their lifeline. It's a direct connection to healing. It just bypasses the problem and delivers support right where it needs to go. Really, that's the bottom line, isn't it? It gives the body life-sustaining food when there's no other way. It stops serious complications after surgery by decompressing the stomach. What it does, really, is it creates this window of opportunity. It gives the body the time and the resources it needs to heal. It's just such a powerful reminder that sometimes the most important tools in medicine aren't the most complicated ones. It kind of makes you wonder, right? What other common, everyday medical devices are out there quietly playing a heroic role every single day? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.